I hate zone coverage, especially with young players, because my theory with young players is what is the easiest thing? Defensive coaches, and they know more than me, but they'll say, well, it makes it easier on them. I think it makes it harder.
Johnny Mac and Jody Mac, Mac and Mac guys here on Birds 365. Coming up in less than 20 minutes now, Mike Gill. We're head down the shore. He is the host of the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Sucks Johnny Mac onto his show every single week. Does a good job there, and he does a good job when he comes on with us. We'll get to his updated Eagles opinions. Speaking of opinions and whether they be educated or foolish or just completely off base, Pro Football Focus. If you watch us here on a reg, I like to give them credit when their opinion agrees with mine, and I will just rip them up, down, and sideways when I think they're woefully off. But they are respected, and they put in a lot of work. I need you to, since you have the access to it, I refuse. I just won't pay. I refuse to pay. It's a service you got to pay extra for to get all their ranking. You can get some on their website, but if you want deep dives at positions and the like, you got to pay for the service. But Johnny Mac has a back door that I don't have. Safety rankings in the National Football League. While you're at it, we'll justify it by saying, how are the Eagles safeties looking, Johnny Mac?
All right, let me pull this up. I'm on the team grades right now, which has, by the way, remember I got in all that.
If you got that, then give me the Eagle team grade. Where do they rank in the National Football League at safety?
Well, no, I meant overall offense. They're number one. Offense, they're number one.
All right, sorry.
Actually, offense, they're number 4. Defense, they're number 2, which I think is ironic. But let me pull up the safety rankings. Number 1, by the way, is the great Cameron Curl of Washington, who just came back. But the Eagles, let's see, going to Marcus Epps and our buddy Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who's probably been the worst of the Eagles defenders. Marcus Epps has been 26th in the league, so solid.
Now remember, there's 2 safeties there ranking 2 guys, and everybody uses different formations and numbers of safeties on the field, but there were upwards of 60, 70 ranked. So Marcus in the 20s is not great, but it's not bad either.
No, and that's exactly where you kind of wanted him, to be honest, because, Marcus is a first-time starter, and he's played solidly, is how I would describe it. And there's nothing wrong with that. And by the way, they have, because it goes by rep count, so they have 82 graded. So 82 guys have played enough to be ranked.
Okay.
Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, 81.
No. 82. Holy mackerel, that's bad.
Yeah, he has not played well.
Then let me ask you this. I was going to ask you about some other guys that they got to be better than Chauncey Gardner-Johnson if he's 81st out of 82. How bad is Kyle Hamilton being? Because you and I talked up Kyle Hamilton a blue streak and thought there was a real good chance that he was going to end up in Eagle green, and we were pretty darn giddy.
Now, I never thought he'd end up as an Eagle because I just didn't think they would take a safety that high. But I love the player.
All right,
yeah.
Thank you for correcting me.
Yeah.
We hoped that he would end up in Eagle green, and we would have been excited about it if the Eagles went off script.
Well, of those 82, now he doesn't play a lot, 112 reps. So Marcus Williams and Chuck Clark are the starters, but they play a lot of 3 safety. Kyle Hamilton is number 9 of 82.
Really?
Yes. Marcus Williams, their big money guy, number 19. So he's played well. Chuck Clark, number 36. So he's played well.
All right, then you got to change positions for me. The Ravens corners are why am I zotzing on their all-pro corner?
Yeah, Marlon Humphrey.
Marlon Humphrey and whoever the other starter is.
Well.
I don't know. Because, by the way, You just gave me the safety numbers for the Ravens. Very good, pretty damn good, and not terrible would be the way I would describe those numbers of their 3 safeties. They are by far the worst passing defense in the National Football League if you go by yards allowed per game. Not even close. They are buried in last place, which means basically their corners must suck if their safeties are okay, and they're the worst defense against the pass in the National Football League. How bad are their corners?
Well, evidently, from what they're saying, the slot has been a real problem. Brandon Stevens is 89th. And I got to see how many corners are graded. Peters has been fine. He's 20. Humphrey's been 38. That's probably a little bit disappointing for him and his reputation.
So it's all one guy. We're
89.
hanging it all on their inability to cover
Hey,
out
man.
of the slot, huh?
Yeah, when you I forget who tweeted, and I wish I could remember, but he got a lot of crap for it. He said, and one player has been really responsible for all the issues of, and I don't even remember the team, and everybody kind of snickered at him. But I mean, if you have one guy who is just crap in the bed all the time, especially with all this zone coverage, Jody, yeah, it could have a dramatic effect. It really can. Now I don't know if that's going on.
It's, Johnny, let me ask a question. If it's standing out as per Pro Football Focus, and we know what they do, we know what they are, but this is like a big the bat signal. You have an issue. You have a problem. His name is. Don't you call Batman? Don't you try and fix it? Don't you acknowledge that, we've got one major issue here, and we got to do something about this right now?
So I'm looking at the team grades, in coverage grades. The Eagles are number 5 in the NFL, for instance. Baltimore is number 16, so smack dab in the middle.
See, this is where Pro Football Focus loses me. I'm sorry. When a team is dead last, and it's not close between them and number 31 in passing yards allowed, how can you be middle of the pack in ranking your secondary?
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, a lot of it, Jonathan Gannon, you'll hear him say ad nauseum, cover and rush and cover. I mean, maybe they're not getting home. I don't know. I haven't watched a lot of Ravens football because I'm too busy watching the Eagles all the time.
Sure.
I don't know. I'm checking their pass rushing numbers. No, they're 11th in pass rushing, so that ain't it. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe tackling. Let's see. Maybe they miss a lot of tackles. That could affect you, especially when you're giving up yards after. Yeah, 28th in tackling. 28th out of 32.
See, but shouldn't you be able to take that out of a ranking of secondary?
Well, they do it.
Secondary guys to tackle, shouldn't that bring their rating of the secondary? Oh, you cover them great, and you almost tip the ball away. You do it, and then you don't tackle them either. Well, no, that's not good. That's not good play.
Well, and that's why I think the biggest criticism of, and that's why they rank all these things. I mean, they rank coverage and then they rank tackling. So, if you cover well and you can't tackle, it doesn't mean you didn't cover well. So, you're worried about, and you're right, you're worried about the final product.
Yes.
But if you cover well, you cover well. And if you can't tackle, you can't tackle. So they're two different categories, and they grade them all. And again, without seeing the actual a lot of how they're playing, the pass rush is better than average, the coverage is average, and the tackling is atrocious. So that's what they're saying. And that's my assessment of where they're going.
Through 4 weeks, the Baltimore Ravens have given up an average of 328 yards through the air every single week. 1,312 yards. The Dolphins are the next closest at 12-41, and the Ravens are 13-12. That's a big difference. And that's between 32 and 31. That's not with teams that are actually getting the job done in coverage. That's bad. And Joe Burrow's coming to town next week. And oh, by the way, yeah, he can throw the ball a little bit. He's got some pretty talented wide receiver. You just put Jamar Chase in the slot and let him go for 250. Is that what you're telling me, Johnny Mac?
Well, I mean, obviously, I see so many blown coverages in it's one of my problems with all this quarters coverage. I say it all the time. I see so many blown covers. Look, I hear so many defensive coaches say, well, this is why we do it. And it makes perfect sense in a classroom environment. But if somebody's blowing the coverage, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And I see so many blown coverages all across the NFL. And these guys keep throwing out this quarters coverage, cover six, cover whatever they're using to try to limit big plays. And they're giving up big plays. I don't understand it. I don't understand. Now it's working for the Eagles now, but you see how upset people get when it doesn't work. And I get why they get upset. But, when you do communicate well, and it does make it difficult. And that's the whole thought process behind the defense and all this quarters coverage that is become the new cover 2, cover 3. Whether it was Tony Dungy or Seattle. Now it's quarters, and it drives me insane, and I see why it drives other people insane. I hate zone coverage, especially with young players, because my theory with young players is what is the easiest thing? Defensive coaches, and they know more than me, but they'll say, well, it makes it easier on them. I think it makes it harder because the most difficult part is communication. If I could point to Jody McDonald and say, go cover that guy, a football player can understand that. If I say, well, this is your area, and if it carries itself up, just stay there. And then they're chasing and they blow the coverage there. To me, it creates more mistakes. But they do studies, and evidently it doesn't.
And one of the guys who used to, trying to get a grasp on Eagle Nation and what they think of a player and how they react, a guy who always would get crushed on my telephone lines, and I would go, I'm sorry, I just don't agree, was Jalen Mills. I thought he was a damn good corner. He would make good plays. About every fifth game or so, he'd make a decision and he'd get burnt, and somebody would get behind him. Oh, this guy's off. This guy's terrible. Why is he on the field? How can we put him out there? Oh, no, he's making plays every single week. He's doing his job every single week, but he'd give up a big play every once in a while, and that's what everybody remember. God forbid you ever let somebody get behind you. You can play great for 5 consecutive games. You let one guy get behind you. You're a bum. You're a stiff. Get the hell out of town. He's still playing well for the New England Patriots these days.
But by the way, Jalen Mills, 103 of 105.
Really?
But he was a good player here. He was a good player. He didn't. He's not playing well this year, but he got too much. Especially as a 7th round pick. He was a good pick for the Eagles.
He really was.
And,
green hair and all. All right, we'll take a quickie timeout. Come back. We're headed down to Jersey Shore. Mike Gill from the Sports Bash 97.3. ESPN's going to jump in with us here next on Birds 365.